Invite the doctor, the rehabilitation department director of Jeonju Jesus Hospital, and our vice president Yun Soon, who's in charge of the global product branding. Please give him a big hand. Hello everyone, I'm Vice President of Atomy Yun Soon. Thank you for welcoming. Now let's talk about HemoHIM. Can you see the screen? Yes? Whenever I see HemoHIM, I wonder what this is about. So I want to tell you the effects of HemoHIM. I really wanted to have this time because when I meet people, they tell me the effects of HemoHIM all differently. Some people say, oh, it cured my atopic dermatitis. And some people say, oh, I get to be pregnant from taking HemoHIM. And some people say, my osteoporosis got better thanks to HemoHIM. And some people say that, oh, my cancer got better from HemoHIM. Do you think doctors will believe this? Whenever I hear these stories, I think like, oh, it's kind of dubious. What's the rationale behind this? So I studied about HemoHIM. Why is this happening? So HemoHIM has all different effects for all different people. It can help improve the immunity and improve the fatigue. That's the two major effects. But there are too many other effects that people say about HemoHIM. So I want to tell you why is it like that. So let's talk about HemoHIM. There are a lot of symptoms following degradation of immunity. So one of them is inflammation. If you have a lot of inflammation, that you will lose immunity, then it will lead to chronic inflammation. So it's like sister and brother. Inflammation and immunity is really closely related to each other, like siblings. And there are two types of inflammation. One is acute one, and the other is chronic. So acute is like when you walk on the street and when you sprain your ankle, it will get really swollen and the blood will be get around that part and you will limp when you walk because it is painful. So we call this acute inflammation. And when you sprain your ankle, the doctor says you shouldn't be walking for the next 48 hours and do some icing. So that's the standard cure. Actually, this is my trade secret. So when you have some pain in your leg and ankle and feet, but the X-ray scan says it's okay, the ultrasonic scan says it is okay, and most of the doctors says that it seems like your ligament is got loosened, so you should get some treatment and come back in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's one of the treatment that doctors give if the injury is not really clear. So after 2 to 3 weeks, it gets better because the inflammation is gone. So from the cast, your foot is fixed, and if you take some painkillers and anti-inflammation agent, it will get better. But some friends of mine, they play soccer, and as they play soccer, sometimes they sprain their ankle and they get some injury and get some bruise. And there's a team doctor. He's not a really specialized doctor, but and he is spraying some medicine on the ankle. And I told you that for the next 48 hours from the sprain, you should not move. So with that spray, it will get swollen even more. So for the acute inflammation, when you get hurt, you need to fix it, put some cast, and do some icing up to 72 hours. And the spray should be after that.
And the pus spray should be applied later on. So after soccer playing, they were spraying something. People are coming to me saying that. And that is ice gel. So national team soccer players are spraying the ice sprayer. This is not Sinsin Pass. So maybe people are familiar with the spray and they actually do the spraying, but you shouldn't do that. So acute inflammation gets better within 3 to 4 weeks. So when you get hurt, when you get injured, you go to the hospital and you get the painkillers and anti-inflammatory pills. And these pills are not good, some are saying. I don't want to take them. People are too worried about it, but you don't have to be worried because the painkillers and anti-inflammatory pills are okay. They're very safe within 3 to 4 weeks. It's better to just keep taking them for that period to get better. If you don't take them and if the pains get continued, the acute pain, the acute inflammation will become chronic. If that becomes chronic, the bacteria or viral impacts get continued, and then it creates another and another inflammation, and this means the inflammation got chronic, and the your tissues will get hurt and damaged, and there will be fibrosis. It means you have the scar. So that's the easy explanation. So if there's fibrosis, the cells around them, they don't want to get fibrosis just like that cell. So they try really hard, and in that process, they all get fibrosis, and all the cells want to grow by themselves. And just to avoid fibrosis, they grow exponentially to become a cancer cell. So fibrosis is very connected to cancer as well. So the chronic inflammation is very bad for us. If it's acute, you get the swelling and white cells and our cells clean the site. That is called macrophage. That is acute inflammation. And the problem is when you get chronic inflammation. If the chronic inflammation happens in brain, you get dementia. And there could be some cardiovascular and hurt, liver, and even your reproductive organ. It can lead to infertility. So it goes all across your body, producing a lot of problems. That is what chronic inflammation is. So why does that happen? There could be some chemicals, toxic chemicals. So there's poisonous substance, trans fats, and other bad substances that can produce blood blood glucose spikes. And in our body, within our body, we have capabilities to control that, to manage that. But if you're stressed out, if we don't work out much, these cannot be solved within our body. What happens in that case? There could be a lot of venomous substances and toxins. To be able to solve the problems, the whole immune system starts operating, and there could be an excessive vitalization because of that. This is the starting point of chronic inflammation. If you look at this car, the genetic transformation happens. If you have chronic inflammation, genes become transformed. And there is the oxygen, active oxygen, and among cytokines, there is something called TNF alpha. It is one of the things that transform the gene. And cytokine number 1, cytokine number 6, these also transform our genes. The result, because of the genetic transformation, there could be some mutation and other cancerous reactions. And if you look at the screen, because of the chronic inflammation, there could be a lot of diseases that happen. And the most common word in the screen, what is it? What is the most frequent word that pops up? Cytokine. What is cytokine? Cytokines create a lot of chronic inflammation. Number 1, number 6. Please remember, cytokine number 1 and number 6. And TNF alpha. So these 3 are the main causes, the main sources of chronic inflammation. So these inflammations happen, and TNF alpha, cytokine number 1 and number 6, these produce a lot of inflammation over and over again. And to be able to resolve that, our immune system starts operating very actively, and it is tired after the process, and the tissues get hurt. There's a disease then. We get stressed out, and hormonal balance also gets affected. If you look at the screen, whether or not we have chronic inflammation. So there are actually a total of 19 questions, but we have 5 main questions. If you check 4 out of total 5 questions, you have chronic inflammation. You have weak nails, you have skin troubles, you have indigestion, you have gut problems, and you cannot focus well, and I don't feel refreshed after sleep, and I have blood glucose spikes, and I enjoy instant food. If you check 4 of them, you have very high possibility of having chronic inflammation. Why is this so problematic? Because a lot of toxic components, bacteria, a lot of toxic materials go into your body, and they don't get resolved, and they become chronic. And if you go chronic, there will be a lot of metabolic diseases, high cholesterol, dementia, depression, autism, all the things happen. COVID-19 swept our country too, right? And some people recovered from COVID-19. Some of them are okay, are well recovered, and the others have pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, liver cancer. There are some cases like that, even though they went through the same COVID-19 disease. After COVID, there are weird diseases that happen to some of them. So during COVID-19, it was actually convenient for doctors to diagnose, because patients come to them saying, I have back pain, I feel stuck in my chest, and I went to another hospital, MRI, CT test, everything was normal. I don't know what's happening to me. And then doctors can say, have you gone through COVID-19? That's actually the after effect of COVID. So we talk about what is the main cause of these kind of new conditions that happen to people, some people. So we were asking why and why over and over again. And in fact, you can see here in the screen, the virus comes in and there are problems, and the problems don't get solved, and the inflammation becomes chronic. Pancreatic disease, liver disease, hard to breathe, bone issues, back pains, and some people cannot see. They have lower vision, significantly lower vision, forgetfulness. And if they get the medical test, everything is normal. So main cause, we believe, is chronic inflammation. So in our everyday life, if you can take control of the inflammations, chronic inflammations, you can prevent future diseases and conditions. And HemoHIM, I want to say, they have anti-inflammatory effects. We have papers, we have research papers that back this. TNF alpha, cytokine number 1, cytokine number 6. Those causes are lowered by HemoHIM. They're controlled. And cytokine number 10 is increased, and 20, the number 10 is increased. Number 10 is actually very good. And the bad ones, TNF alpha and number 1 and number 6, are lowered by HemoHIM. So chronic inflammations can be controlled, can be regulated by HemoHIM, our product. I actually wanted to compare HemoHIM to something. Our blood goes all across, moves all across our body. Why is that? To provide oxygen. Second, to provide nutrients. That is one of the biggest reasons why blood moves around. And if the vessels are not good, not healthy or stuck, the nutrients and the oxygen cannot be provided very well, very smoothly. So I want to compare HemoHIM to a pipe, the water pipe that provides water to different households without any stoppage. The water goes all the way to your house, to your home. That is what I want to make a comparison to. Immunity and fatigue reduction. And there are a lot of patents, as you might well know. However, there is one thing, one worry for us. There is swine flu, MERS, COVID-19. So every 5 years there is an epidemic. There is an infectious disease, and we are scared. 2020, COVID happened, and 5 years later, it is next year? Of course, it's not always 5 years of period, 5 years of term. The medical sector, the medical industry is worried about the AI, bird influenza. So, because there are a lot of birds in the sky, there is a limitation of getting the virus currently, but there could be some transformation of the virus, and it might be modified to become more easier to end up in our body, and then the disaster could happen in the future. So what should we do? That is what the medical professionals are worrying about. Anyway, so in everyday life, no matter what, of course, yeah, I also caught COVID. I was fortunate enough to, have normal memory and smell as well. I didn't have any after effect after COVID-19. And some people actually told me that I have different voices. So I tested, and I was tested positive for COVID. So I got kicked away from my house. I didn't have fever, I didn't have any conditions, but I still had COVID because I was tested positive. And one good thing about having a COVID is everyone was taking care of me, making phone calls to me, so I thought it was worth catching. So, anyways, there will be a lot of other infectious diseases in the future. And if you want to be free from inflammation, chronic inflammation in particular, you have to have different habits, life habits. No instant food, no instant products. And if you have diabetes, you can do some regulatory practices. If you do regulations, you can cover this very well. And you drink a lot of water and sleep well. And if you're stressed out, you give prayers. If you're stressed out every day, all the time, maybe next Friday you can join the meeting, the Bible meeting, because I'm the instructor.
So maybe it'll be difficult for you to do this all the time. That's why you need to take HemoHIM. You need to take HemoHIM on a regular basis, like a meal. In my personal opinion, HemoHIM noni and probiotics, I think it's just like meals. So I take all these things all the time to regulate the chronic inflammation, to boost my immunity. So that's one way to continue to do this business for a long time. So HemoHIM has so many advantages. It protects our wellness, happiness, and our health. It's really a great product. We need to share this information to many other people. Before I tell you to buy this product to get some profit, but as a doctor, I really want to recommend you to introduce HemoHIM to many other people to protect their health, wellness, and their happiness. This is really a great way to protect ourselves from chronic inflammation. I told you many times about immunity. I think this way I can explain what immunity is. There is an enemy, and on the front line, the NK cells are fighting against the enemy. If that's the end, we will not move on to chronic inflammation. So what's really good about HemoHIM is that HemoHIM plays this NK cell role. So if the natural killer cell can fight off the enemy, then that's it. But if the enemy is too strong, they send down the cytokine and bring other soldiers. So let's say there are some special corps from the enemy. If they are infants, then we are bringing our soldiers to fight against them. But as the war gets prolonged, soldiers will die. So we have this training center to train our soldiers to boost their immunity so that HemoHIM can prevent the enemy cells to change the chronic inflammation. So immunity is an all-out war. So if you lose here, you will die. So once the war occurs, you need to win the war. Otherwise, we'll die. So I hope many people will protect their health and happiness with HemoHIM. And after me, we have Director Kim Hyun-gyu to tell you about the development story about HemoHIM, especially about how HemoHIM can improve the fatigue. I think there's one thing that he's not good at. Do you know what this is? He's not good at lying. Yeah, now let's listen to his lecture. Thank you.